Hello friends, welcome back. Today I'm going to give you some personal stories of where I have gone into the future and explain to you what I've seen, and also an experience I had where I went to a secret meeting. And then after I talk about these personal experiences, I'm going to talk about what it is we can do or where it is we are going with humanity and this planet. So to begin, I want to start back in 1990s. This was an astral trip with my astral body. And one night I was sleeping and I woke up in my astral body in a different bed in a different time. And that was the year 2021. And when I woke up sitting in this bed in 2021, there were some other beings in the room with me. And particularly one man who is a human here on Earth. I haven't met him yet, but he was also in the room, but he is somebody I will meet in the future. And we were discussing that the early 20s, 20, 21, 22, 23, were going to be a pivotal decision point for humanity, a sort of crossroads. And that it would be very important what we did during these few years that are coming up now to shape the destiny of some of the avatars that are on this planet. And that was in the 1990s. So I knew this time period was coming. And we are now in this time period of a crossroads. So then I had another experience in the early 2000s where I was beginning to use my smart body, which I've told you about in other videos. And I bilocated into my smart body inside a mountain range, inside a mountain. So when I transferred my consciousness, I went from here, or in my body, straight into that higher body, my smart body, which is a fifth density body. And when I anchored into that fifth density body, I was sitting in a cell inside a mountain in the United States. And when I say a cell, I'm thinking like how monks, religious people have these rooms, they call them cells. There's like a chair, a table, and a bed. It kind of was that sparse. There was a chair and some other things in the room. I stood up, I was in a robe. I walked out into the hall. Now I am underground in a mountain, and everything is carved out of this mountain using high technology because this is fifth density beings. So we're talking high advanced extraterrestrials that are benevolent. And so I knew, and when you're in your smart body, you know all kinds of things. You're very smart. That's why I call it a smart body. So I knew what I was doing. I walked down this hall. I went to what was a lift, or what we call an elevator, but really it was just a pad. And I stood on this pad and mentally I said, observatory. And it knew where to take me. So it took me all the way up to the top of the mountain. And there was this very large room where the part of this top of this mountain had been carved away so that you had an expansive view of all the mountain range, and for miles and miles and miles you could see everything around you. But there was technology, maybe it was holographic kind of technology, but it was solid holographic, that shielded this observatory from people on the outside. To them, it looked just like a mountain. So I was looking out at the whole countryside, which looked different than it does today. So I was in the future after I have already left the world as you know me here. But this told me that I will at least be back here at some point in the future. So even though I'm transitioning from here and people on Earth may think I'm gone, I'm coming back for sure at least one time that I know of. But this was a future for me to observe, not necessarily my future, but an experience of the future. So I was there, and there was another woman there with me, and the same man who was in my 1990s experience of the early 20s, he was also there. He came in also, and we were all in robes. And so she activated a screen, a very large screen that could see all around the planet. Any place we wanted to look, we could observe. And there were massive changes happening on the planet. The air was full of sort of a chemical fog that had a little bit different mix than what we're breathing right now. There were bacteria and life forms and all kinds of interesting life forms, that I could just say, that were moving around on the planet and growing up on things. In other words, the trees, what would normally be green grass and green trees, there was no green grass. There was this blanket of some kind of life form. I don't know if it was fungus or bacterial or whatever, but it was growing and spreading. And the air had a certain chemical mixture in it that was not compatible with the way we are now. So this man that was also in the room with me decided he was going to go out there, and we kind of looked at him like, well, okay, but he had this feeling and knowing that he could tolerate the environment out there, because we're in our fifth density bodies, so we have a way of working that. So he was going out to investigate something. But the lady and I were talking about this transitional period on the earth, because there was a lot of what looked like to me destruction. Places where there might have been natural disasters, places where whole areas were wiped out or was not the way we see it now. And this correlates with some not visions, but astral travel, or actually times when I've been taken up physically up on ships and shown futures where there were like these supercell hurricanes in North Atlantic wiping out millions. And so the earth was in a major transition. There were no humans around. And so then I want to move back now to something else that happened more recently. Within the last 5 years, I was using my smart body, and I went to a place in Europe. And this building looks like a normal, everyday kind of office building. Or I don't know that it looked like an office building, but it just looks like a building that you would conduct business or some kind of business in. And out front of it was a lot of hedges, green hedges, and a small little waterfall that kind of trickled into like a little pond or like a little pool area. This was along the side of the building. And so anybody passing by this building would have just seen like a little water feature, some hedges, and a building that was probably a few stories high. Not a real high building, a mid-rise kind of building. So when I showed up there, I showed up on the outside. I transported myself there on the outside of this building in my smart body. And I walked around the side of this water feature. And this water feature, there's a setup in this water feature that is also holographic behind this water feature that makes it look just like the side of the building. But actually this section, part of the earth, opens up, and there's a ramp, and cars could actually drive down in there. I walked down in there because it was opening. I followed the car. And it was all marble when you went underneath the building, and right to the right was a parking area where there were some cars, and it was very large, and it was all marble, but then it funneled off into like a hallway, and I followed the hallway, and as I walked down this marble hallway, it looked like, for example, if you were in a hotel, and you were having like a conference center, the conference room, and you know there's this outside area before you go into the conference room where they set up tables sometimes and you register. There were these tables like that, and there was informational packets or informational brochure booklets on the table, and I picked up one. And to the right of this table area, there was a very large steel, I'm saying it's steel, but it could have been some other kind of metal, very large steel door that was at least 4 feet thick, and it was very tall. And it was open, and people were walking into this room. And so I turned and was looking at and observing things, and I turned and started to walk in this door. As the door was on a timer, started to close, I walked through it, and it closed shut and was totally sealed. And inside had its own air system, its own water system. Nothing could get in, nothing could get out. There was no electronics, no cell phones, no computers, nothing electronic, no spy satellites. It was completely shielded. I mean, this was a bunker of total privacy. So, except for smart bodies who can get in there. So, as I was in there, there was a meeting going on, and these were not world leaders like the president or the prime minister. They were not there. These were people, though, who absolutely had some authority and control over what was occurring on the planet. And there was a discussion going on about our basic systems. For instance, we were talking about 7 systems on the planet and how they were functioning and surviving. And we might say one of them was a financial system. One of them was a system for our water, and the electrical systems, like the electrical grids and energy systems and food systems, just all these different things that make our planet work. And so the discussion was going on about the current issues of problems that we have for the day with this. And some of these people I recognize, but most of them you would not know who they were. And the discussion was that when this planet is not sustainable, and everybody in the room knew that this planet was not going to make it, and that 8, 9, 10 billion people on the planet would not be sustainable. And so there are discussions in this room about what to do about it. And yes, there were discussions about doing some kind of implant, which, I mean, an implant to tag people so that we would know where everybody was. Because now, if you listen to the discussion, there was no one in this room that was standing up as some evil person wanting to dominate and control the world and kill everybody off and enslave us. So those little conspiracy theories out there, people, you need to let them go. You're only contributing to the negative when you post conspiracy theories on your Facebook and you stand up and make speeches about who's evil and who's this and who's that. You're only part of the problem. You're not part of the solution. These people that are in this room, they are, remember my 7 levels. They're not initiate and master level. They're aspirant. There's some disciples in there. There's even a few individuals in there, which is, not as healthy. They are more self-centered and self-surviving, but there's a majority of aspirant trying to figure things out, and there's disciple. Now remember, in my 7 levels, there's 2 levels of disciple. There's the disciple who is learning to quiet the monkey mind and meditate and develop a spiritual connection. There's disciples who have gone totally technology. The mind is God. The mind is we're superior beings. We have a high intellect. Let's solve all of our problems through technology. So this is that group in there. This is what they know. So they were trying to figure out what we're going to do, because we're going to have a water shortage. We don't have enough water to sustain on the planet. And they were talking about when you have 9 billion people, and you have more pandemics which will be coming, and you have natural disasters which will be coming, how do you find these people? How do you track them and get resources to them, and how do you take care of them? And so there is a talk about a tracking system, but the discussion on that is basically for planetary survival, because they want to do, there is a discussion on the financial systems are going to collapse. They're just not going to make it. So there is discussion about a world, some sort of world currency where everybody gets a certain amount of paycheck, world pay, sustainable income that you get deposited into your bank. And there's a discussion of how you have to have this tag in order to get paid and get money into the system, because there's many people lost in India and Africa and places like that, in Asia, that they don't have a banking system. They use everything on their cell phone. They get Bitcoin put on their cell phone, or they get paid in their cell phone through Apple Pay or something, and this is how they're transactioning. They don't have banks. Nobody knows them. There's a disaster, nobody knows they even exist. They can't find them. So there's a real concern about unable to manage a planet with too many people, because we are a planet that loves to have sex. And so there's a struggle with overpopulation. There's a struggle with lack of enough resources. There's a struggle with, they know the financial systems are going to collapse. We just put trillions of more dollars into the American system. In the future, there will be trillions more, because there's more disasters, there's more collapses, there's more trouble in the future. And they know it's unsustainable. And they are trying to figure out how to clean up the oceans. What kind of technology can be used to clean the water? How do we get rid of all the pollution? I mean, there's massive discussions going on. And so I want to move now to where we are. So I have been told in several other meetings that I've had with my Syrians that, there is a new species coming for this planet. Humanity is not going to survive in perpetuity. It's not going to be here forever. Humanity has a limited time cycle, and we are at the end of our time cycle. And now, when I say end, I believe it's several more generations, because it's for sure my great-grandchildren. So we're looking at several more generations, but that's a very short time span in the long cycle that's been going on. And so there is a new life form that will replace us on this planet. And when I was in that mountain range, and I was seeing how the planet was being re-terraformed, reorganized, it was being, the planet was healing and reforming itself to sustain a new life form. And so we are not going to make it much past, I couldn't even give you a time period. It could be 100 years, maybe 2, but I don't know for sure. So don't put me to any time slot, but I can tell you we're on the end. And I can tell you that the path we're on right now has so much momentum, because our parents taught us a way, we taught our children are teaching their children. None of our children are being taught their spiritual skills. And here comes this topic when I say spiritual skills in the title, because we have this opportunity right now where the entire planet has stopped functioning, on a large basis right now. And the planet is going through a little bit of a rebalancing and re-healing of herself. Los Angeles, just this week, has reported the cleanest air they have ever had on record, because no cars, or very few cars, are out there. So the planet is going through a healing process right now, trying to rebalance herself from all the negative destructions we've been doing with polarizing and hating this group and hating that group and putting ourselves as the righteous people and these people as the wrong people, and we polarize everywhere. And spiritual people are polarizing just as much as the people we don't like, we think are bad. We are contributing to the problem. And even in the school systems are completely rehashing the same old stuff. So there is a great momentum happening down this path that we're on. I mean, none of our schools are teaching spiritual skills. What about those who are homeschooling? Are you teaching your children how to meditate? Are you teaching your children how to communicate with nature? How to do precognition, premonition, telepathy, bilocation, astral travel? Are you helping them keep journals for their lucid dreaming and their astral travels? I mean, you're not teaching, we are not teaching these next generations what they need. They need spiritual skills. So I have this library. I've given you lucid dreaming. I've given you astral travel, bilocation, transferring your consciousness, precognition, premonition, telepathy. I mean, every one of those is in a video. We need to start developing our spiritual skills, because we have a fork right now which may not actually create a different outcome that humanity is done, because it's done. But what it is going to do is it can fork off and create a group of avatars that have spiritual skills that have been taught by our generations to the future generations. So now we have this option of these spiritual people who can come up, who will be here on the planet during the last end days, because we are the transition team. These people with spiritual skills, they will be showing humanity an alternate reality, an alternate way to live, and they will have to demonstrate it. You can't speechify. You can't do like get on YouTube and say, this is right, this is wrong. You got to live it and demonstrate it. You got to show you have the power to heal. You have the power to reach into the future and know what's happening. You have telepathy. You can communicate with nature. You can heal nature. You have to start working with these skills. You have them. They're in your divine blueprint. Start accessing them. Get serious. It isn't for our generation. We can't be helped. It is for our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And I'm not far past that, maybe one more generation or so. But we have to start doing something with these generations behind me. Even my son's generation, which is 40, they've already been trained. And we have to untrain them. And the generations below that, we need to start demonstrating our spiritual skills. Because what is going to happen in the actual end times is there's going to be a fork. If we can start now, this pause is the chance to do it. Right now is a healing of the earth. All your spare time should be spent in working on your spiritual skills, but also go out and hug a tree, sit on the ground, heal the earth, help her rebalance herself, and let us have a restart of society with our spiritual people out there determined to take a different path. Why? Because if you will take a different path, even though there is so much momentum going down this technology path and this scarcity and using up the resources and pretty much end of humanity idea, there will be another path going alongside it. It won't be the 7, 8, 9 billion people, but it will be a group of spiritual adepts who have skills, who can demonstrate an alternative, that we can pull as many people over as possible into this path before the end times. Because what happens then is what I put in my dictionary, the Great Migration. There will be a migration of avatars in the end time. And these avatars are going to be fifth density bodies. Because, my friends, the idea of ascension, where you're going to go from a 3rd density body here to an 8th density light being, isn't happening. You cannot go where you haven't been. You're climbing up your blueprint. Remember my discussion on the blueprint. Life intelligence, conscious intelligence comes down the blueprint. So we always have higher intelligence. But our evolutionary pattern is to go up the blueprint. You can't skip from 3rd to 8th. You must go to 4th, 5th, 6th, and on up. So we can, if we start mastering our skills now and teaching them to the next generations, we can have a large group of avatars that will be going into 5th density worlds and some in 6th. And 6 is ascended master, and this is what I call ascension. I don't call ascension going into some kind of angelic light body up in 8th density. Remember my video on I've met my ascended self? That ascended being was so far beyond me, I had to stand in my higher density bodies to even stand in her presence. So we're talking about taking a migration of humanity into 5th density planets. And I've talked about this in when I've talked about your spiritual gifts and talents, the very last video on transferring your consciousness and bilocation. I've talked about these worlds. These worlds are above 4th density. 4th density is high technology, extraterrestrial, still warring, still trading, still doing technology. 5th density extraterrestrials, if they do have technology, but their technology is so amazing. It is completely in harmony with their planet. Now remember, 5th density extraterrestrials are terrestrial beings. Remember, I've told you in my Syrian video that Syrians are space beings. They live in space. 5th density beings are terrestrial beings from some planet. They have a home world. So there will be a migration of what you could call righteous souls, righteous avatars, righteous beings. That's a word that's being thrown around. A lot of religious people throw this around with righteous beings. Well, what is that? Those are people who have developed some spiritual skills. And they're obviously good people. They're people who have inner peace. They're people who have a quiet mind. So at the most basic level, they have inner peace and quiet mind, but they have spiritual skills. And I have a whole list of them in my library, plus healing skills, all kinds of skills. And they are going to be the ones that are migrating to new worlds in 5th density that will be amazing paradises, like a new earth and a new heavens. The new earth, the new heavens, these are paradises of just great beauty. But we will know how those that are going with this 5th density migration, the great migration, they will know how to be symbiotic with their planet. Their technology will be symbiotic with the planet. Their technology right now is symbiotic with their spaceships and symbiotic with themselves. I've been on the ships. The ships, you talk mentally to the ships, and the ships, know everything that you need to know. I mean, it's a very symbiotic relationship. Technology is a wonderful thing when it is mastered and executed by higher consciousness beings. Technology can be very destructive when it is executed by lower life form beings like here on Earth. So this is where we are, friends. Stop polarizing. Stop following and posting, conspiracy theories. I guarantee you most of those are false. And stop raising up people out there on the earth and putting them as a figurehead of the epitome of evil. Stop that. You are not helping. You are causing the problem. You cannot resist evil. You cannot war with evil. You can't fight. You can't struggle. And you can't condemn and be a higher spiritual being. When we see things we don't like, yes, there are injustices. Yes, there are things we don't like. Don't push against it. Don't condemn it. Instead, move your focus off that timeline. Put your focus on the new timeline. You have the choice now. When we re-kick this civilization, choose. When you see things of the old world happening that you don't like, leave it alone. You are on a different timeline. You're creating the future for the future generations, because we are just the transitional team. Keep remembering that. Every action you take is creating a separate timeline that's running a separate reality, not a timeline, a separate alternative running side by side. It's on the same timeline, but it's a separate alternative. And in the times to come, we build up enough spiritual people that are demonstrating skills, we're going to show them, look, you don't have to plug into a global net to get all your information. You can use your precognition, your premonition, your telepathy. You can communicate with your blueprint. You can access your higher consciousness. You can solve problems by getting downloads for technology that is helpful to the planet. You can show an alternate path than what the momentum is moving for now. And we can take that path and load up as many people as we can on it for this migration that's coming, because there is a great migration that's coming. And many avatars will move into 5th density and go to new worlds. And there will be some avatars that will make an ascension, you could say, into 6th density ascended bodies. And what are those bodies? Those bodies are created by thought. When you're in 6th, 7th, and 8th density, you can manifest a body by thought. Can you be in like a light body? Yes, you can be in a non-physical form, let's say, and then you can generate a form by thought in the 6th density. It's still not the same as 8th density, what I would call your highest ascended angelic light body self. I mean, there's like levels. But in 5th density, these are extremely advanced, benevolent, wonderful life civilizations. And so that is kind of where I am with this talk today. We have an opportunity now to start to really focus on creating this second alternative. I'm going to use the word alternative. It's not a timeline. It's the same timeline. It's just an alternate choice. But to do that, you have to get serious about your spiritual skills. And you've got to start showing some mastery. You've got to stop condemning, stop focusing on the negative the negative alternative, and focus on a different alternative. So if you can just train yourself that when you see something you don't like, immediately make sure you're going on the alternate path that you can take, which is focus on what you do want. Focus on what you do want to see happen. Focus on your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Focus on the generations that need you to do the right thing right now. Focus on them, because they are the ones that are going to take the essence of who we were as humanity and put it on a different planet. This planet is getting a new life form. And so this is where I want to leave this video for today. If you have any questions, post your questions in the comment section below. And I will talk to you and see you in the next video. Thank you.